Hi, my name is Jennifer S. Lewis, CEOE. I'm the Compliance Coordinator at the University of Southern Mississippi and the immediate past president of USM AOP, as well as a NAEOP member and previous secretary of NAEOP. I'm here today to talk to you about Windows snipping options, and I hope that you'll learn some great information about how to use the snipping tool to optimize your productivity. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is how to access the snipping tool. So you'll see that there's a commonality in how you access it. Whether you're in Windows 10, Windows 8.1, or RT 8.1 or 7, all you have to do is start typing the word snip. I don't think you even have to type the word tool. You see what I mean? When you go in here, you'll go to your search option wherever it is. In Windows 10, it's there in that left-hand corner where I've placed it. And once I type the word snip, I'm not even get to the word tool, I will see two options, snipping tool and snip and sketch. We will be selecting snipping tool for purposes of this presentation. We'll talk about snip and sketch later. So the first thing I always do when I get an application I know I'm going to use pretty frequently is pin it to the taskbar. So if you haven't pinned it before, you'll see pin from taskbar as your option here. Once you pin it to the taskbar, it will actually be sitting right here, and all you have to do, I'm going to close all these out so that you can see it. Just open up. Is open right there. Now there you'll see the little message about trying Snip and Sketch because that's where this is moving to eventually. And again, we'll talk about that a little bit more later. The first thing I want to do is show you your options. So the first thing that you can do is select a shape. A freeform shape is something you draw. It can be any hodgepodge that you create. It doesn't have to be symmetrical at all. So it could be a big curly cube. It's not any particular shape. And that's the freeform snip. Rectangular snip, that just is kind of self-explanatory. Window snip, snips the actual window that it sees. A full screen snip would get everything even further down what will be on your screen. So if you wanted like a whole web page, the full screen snip would probably be the way to go. Now after you select your mode, right here it's going to automatically go into that process unless you hit a delay. So right here you see the little scissors. And I'm just going to, oops, that was the freeform option. So you see I only did a little sliver and that's what it did. Let's try again and I'll show you a little bit more what I mean by freeform. Again, it doesn't have to make any sense. So that's the freeform option. You have your rectangular snip. Your rectangular snip, you can click new, and it actually is a rectangle right there. And right there you see it actually can be very small or very big. So that's a medium-sized one, but you could actually have just a little corner that you want. Honestly, I have used this to create another shape, and if I wanted to do a bunch of different things and kind of put them all together, you can just paste it into Word and paste, continue to paste until you make another image, basically. That's one of the things you can do. Those are called annotations per Microsoft. The other option in terms of the snipping tool modes is the window snip. And so when you click new, it's going to just take the whole window. It does it. You don't have to do anything else. And then you've got the whole window there. Well, one of the things that is important to do is give yourself a little bit of time to get where you're going so that it actually isn't going to take the snip of the window that you're maybe on at the point you start this, but give you a couple of seconds leeway. So right here, oops, if you hit escape, it'll actually go back and turn off the actual snip. So I'm just going to get a window up that we can look at. And let's see, we'll go to the University of Southern Mississippi web page. Okay. And let's say that I'm going to do a snip. I'm going to use my snip shortcut, which is Control Print Screen. And then once that crosshairs comes up, you just do that piece right there. And then in your snip, you have what you need. Oops. Now, once you have a snip, you actually have a lot of options that I want to discuss with you. What we do is use it to make images. So let's say that I wanted to make an image of this eagle, but obviously I don't want to go and take a picture of the statue. So all I would need to do is just go get my snipping tool up again. Whoops. Close that out and that out and that out. And open my snipping tool. And then just go make sure I've got a rectangular mode. New. Whoops. Hold on one second. It's got a mind of its own sometimes. All right, so we'll go in here. We're going to go ahead and get the whole thing on the Windows snip. Sadly, it took the other snip on the other side. So let me pull it over so you can see what it snipped. It snipped the dominant window, window 1, because I've got 2 screens up. So when you see that right here, now we can actually save this and save it on our desktop as slide, let's say, right? Okay. And then let's open slide, which is on the other side of my desktop. Okay. And it took the whole window. So it took the left and the right, because that's what it considered the window. Those are both of my screens. So what we're going to do is get rid of some of this using the snipping tool. So it opened up in photo. We're just going to get our snipping tool. Oops, hold on one second. We forgot to reset the settings. No, actually it reset itself. Okay. So now we're just going to go back here and we're just going to take the part of the image that we wanted. Let's say we just wanted that. So now we have the logo of the institution. So it does have some options to actually put notes. I haven't had much success with this pen option, and a lot of it's because of the stability of the pen. It doesn't look very professional. It's you and your mouse trying to make words with something that is very fluid, so it's not that great. If you make mistakes, you can delete. The thing that I found most useful is just using highlighting. That's pretty easy and not as easy to mess up. See, sometimes you do. The bad part about this is this. What if I just wanted to get rid of part of this, like the top part of the highlight? The reality is that you think you could hit the eraser and get rid of part of it, but it automatically takes that whole piece out. You can't just get rid of like the part that you run over. So that is one of the issues with it that I'm sure people will comment on and allow some changes to be made. Additionally, oops, you can do Windows key plus Shift plus S to automatically get into a snip. So we have Windows key plus the Shift key plus the S key. It gets a little bit dark, and then you see the crosshairs. And then again, you can go and snip whatever you want to snip. And it actually gives you a message. Sadly, I don't think you can see it because it's on the side of my desktop. Yeah, it just gives you a message, a notification that you have a snip because you used the shortcut. And if you're in Windows 10, there's a little icon on the right side of your screen. It looks kind of a Post-it note. It's all your notifications, and you'll see that the snip is saved to the clipboard, and it actually lets you know that as a notification, which I thought was pretty interesting. The other thing I wanted to point out in terms of the snip is that you can also create an editable image using the snip by cropping the snip. So right here, we have a very small image. What I want to do is edit it. There's not a lot of editing functionality in here. So rather than going in here necessarily, you look around, there's not a lot of options. There's save as, send to, so you can email the snip and print. But there's not a lot of editing options. Just copy and edit with Paint. So what I do is go to edit with Paint. Paint comes up. When Paint comes up, you would just go to Paint And here in Paint, you can do a lot more. You can add some text. It'll actually create a text box. And you can change the font size. Our little slogan, Southern Miss to the top, SMTTT. And we'll just put that above it, since we don't have a lot of real estate. I probably need to go a little bit smaller on that. So it's kind of trial and error. Here we go. And then once you click out of it, now once you click out of it, there's no really clicking back into it. That's the only bad thing, because like sometimes I like to change the color of the font, but you can't really do that. But if you right click, you do have some other options. You could take a screenshot of that. You could look at the canvas options, and that lets you edit the size of it. And again, it still won't let you click in on the actual lettering, but it does let you edit the size. So I thought that was interesting. I often use it to scale the image down so that it fits a special use. Like I was doing a fundraiser recently for our community service, raising funds for dogs, and we needed the image scaled down to Facebook size, so I just made it smaller until it worked, and it's just trial and error because it's not a dimensions type situation, it's just a percentage type situation. So you'll have to kind of trial and error it. There's also effects on here that I thought were pretty interesting, where you could click and change the background. And this might not seem so useful, but remember, you still have your snipping tool. So once you have some edits that you want to keep, but you don't necessarily want all that real estate in it, I go on here, I go new, and then I actually create a new image from that. And then you just save your image or print your image or email your image to someone. And it automatically looks at your default email provider in terms of sending that. So that's important to note. Let's see the rest of the things. There's also brushes. The brushes to me aren't that great. I guess if you're more artistic, they might be better. It allows you to actually go in here and create some different colors. But again, I'm not good at keeping my hand steady enough, and for it to look real nice, you would have to be really careful. And I often spent a lot of time trying to make it work. Like that doesn't look horribly bad, but it also doesn't look horribly good. If you do the little pixel pen, you see, it would just be, it's just very fine. And so you have to try to figure out how to make it work. It's not impossible, it's just going to be a little bit time consuming. But I like to think about this as a scaled down Photoshop. So, I mean, it's better than not having anything, and Photoshop is expensive. So it's very useful in that regard. Also wanted to let you know that you can undo all these changes that you've done and go back to the original image. It keeps all that. And then you can also record what you're doing. So you could set a recording, and then you can export it as a video if you do the recording. The other thing, there's some effects here. There's this 3D view. It just changes it to the side. This mixed reality option is grayed out because we're using the camera to record the webinar. But if you've ever played something called Pokemon Go, where you see yourself in the image and you see other three-dimensional images of different things behind you, it basically does that. And you could place this image or parts of it into some mixed reality, part from your camera and part from the program itself. And in doing that, there's also some shapes you could add. So if you wanted to create something like that. Or you can do models. And there's some interesting things you could do, and it all basically is pretty user-friendly in that regard. And then there's the 3D library, which has a lot of different options. Like if you were doing something regarding a kitchen, you could have those 3D models in there with that piece. So that really is helpful in terms of getting you kind of ahead on your project. I'm going to close photos out. So I also wanted to mention that in terms of other options, there are other options that aren't necessarily the Snip tool or the Snip and Keep. Other things including Evernote, OneNote, and Google Keep. If y'all are interested in learning more about those, just email those and we'll look at developing a future training session regarding those. But those are all helpful. They're basically digital notebooks, and you can keep images in there, and then you'll have the ability to kind of have the images with the context within which they fit. So if you're doing research on a particular project and you have to keep track of maybe someone's social media account, you could put all those images in there. We often use the snipping to create screenshots of training that's online in digital format. And that allows us to have basically a screen by screen shot of what the person sees. So if there's a question about what they understood, we can just look back at our Word document. It also allows us to provide an option to people in terms of if they can't use the PowerPoint that we have or the online course that we have, we can just give them the Word document. They can review that and then take a test to assess if they've understood the concepts about our compliance policies. So it is a big time saver for us. Now, what I want to talk to you about really quickly is our snipping tool replacement. Yes, snipping tool will be going away. When? I'm not really sure. It's going to be almost a year pretty soon since they announced that snipping tool will be phased out or retired, but they don't have an exact date provided, so we will see. So what we want to look at is some of the new features. Basically, the pencil is one of the bigger features in here. Instead of just the pen and highlight, you get a pencil. Zooming and inking in the margins. You can also mark up images with the ink, which you could do before. But there is an option to share your content easier than the other. Not just the option to email that. So I think that will be what you'll be interested in most. So to access Snip and Sketch, again, you're going to do the same thing you did before. You're just going to start typing Snip, and there you see Snip and Sketch. Again, you're going to pin the taskbar. Here it is. And then next time you need it, you'll just open it up. So when you open this up, you'll get these options. Now, the first thing you're going to notice is that you don't have the shape option. Well, the shape option is only available when you're actually doing the Windows Shift S, which is the way that you access the shape menu to take the snip. So since you don't have any options otherwise or way to select them on here, it automatically will do a rectangle. So just to show you, I'll go ahead and go here. I'll do new, and you'll see it automatically is doing a rectangle. Okay, now if I do the Windows key, the Shift key, and the S key, then you're able to actually, hold on one second. The Windows key, the Shift key, and the S key. You actually get a menu, and you're not able to see it because it's popping up on my other screen, but it actually has the rectangular clip, the freeform clip, and the full screen clip. So you have all the same clip shapes that you had previously. And then you can select freeform, and then you can just do whatever you want to do, and it'll actually clip it. And again, it does send you that notification on the side that says Snip Saved to Clipboard. And if you click on your notification, it opens up Snip and Sketch. Well, what if you want to figure out what size it is? There's a ruler now. What if you want to crop it? The cropping is there. You can escape to get out of any of those options. There's also the pencil. That's what we talked about, which I thought might be easier to learn how to use. But again, it would be a learning process. And if you need to erase things, the eraser, the eraser is right here. Oops, there it goes. You can also use a protractor. I'm not really sure what you would use it for, but it is an option. So I guess if you're doing some circular shape, that would allow you to do that. And again, the actual ballpoint pen, the highlighter is still here. And then if you have a touch writing pen, which I have from Microsoft, you could go in here and actually change the shapes and write in there with that pen. Again, save is going to be over here, copy is going to be here, but here's the best part, share. So you can click on we need more information, and it looks for your contacts to share it. You can click on here. Oops, let me get back out of here so you can see it. And it looks for nearby devices. So I can automatically share with a computer. It also will share with other applications that you use often. So here's Skype, your other mail program, OneNote, my external hard drive, and you can add other apps that it can share with. So as you can see, it's a little bit more robust. And you can send feedback, and they are looking for feedback in terms of how to make it better. So definitely use that. Print is available. Tips and tricks is more Microsoft tips and tricks. It only includes 1 or 2 tips about the Snip and Sketch, and they're nothing more than what we discussed before. You can also open files that have images, let's see, and then go and use those, incorporate those in your Snip and Sketch. And that allows you to do what's considered annotations or changes of some sort to the image itself in the Snip and Sketch. So again, it is functioning to some degree as a free photoshopping type situation or application. And that's just some of the things you can do. Again, it kind of is only limited based on what you know that you want to do and what you need to do. I did want to mention that there are shortcuts. So if you want to use shortcuts in Snip and Sketch, there's a couple here. New Snip is Control-N, Control-O is File, Control-E is just like the eraser, Control-P. Some of these are just the general shortcuts, but there's also some that belong to Snip and Sketch using the Alt key. So if you hold the Alt key when you're in Snip and Sketch, keep it held, you'll see all these letters. So now Alt plus N will do New, Alt plus O will do Open, Alt plus T, we'll be doing that piece right there. So basically the Alt brings up all those menus, but you have to hold it down for a little bit, then you'll kind of have to learn those. But that's pretty useful as well. So again, this is just a little bit of what you can do. It's only limited by your imagination and your needs. It's a trial and error type situation, and the more you use it, the better you get at it. So thank you for giving us this opportunity to provide Tuesday's tip about the Windows snipping tool options. Have a great Tuesday.